For the first time ever on the channel, I'm going to be doing a Premier League prediction. And for the first time ever in YouTube history, there's going to be a video that predicts the Premier League with 100% accuracy. I'm just kidding. Please don't attack me for the things I'm about to say. I'm 50% just taking the piss. So there's really no need for a crazy convoluted intro where I give an entire history of the Premier League for context or anything crazy like that. Let's just get straight into the predictions. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'll give my 1450th sub a cookie, so make sure you're subbing. But without further ado, boys, let's get into the Premier League predictions. So in dead last, there's 20 teams to choose from. Who do I think is going to be coming last? Of course, it is Chelsea Football Club. No, but really, it's going to be Southampton. So Southampton is back in the Premier League after winning in the Championship playoffs. What better way to get back into the Premier League and through the game that is dubbed the $100 million game? And we finally have a team back that is renowned for being just present in the Premier League, but the harsh truth is they probably won't be in the Premier League after this season. They're a long days away from the Premier League teams of old, and they've made a couple of signings this season, but they don't really look too promising. Or the likes of Charlie Taylor, Brereton Diaz, Adam Lallana, really gonna be enough for this Southampton team to stay alive? The one signing that they have made that could be a good surprise is Sugawara. He's a good right back who could probably be utilized also across the defense if need be. He should be solid, but even then, this team doesn't really scream to me we're staying in the Premier League. So I'm sorry to say it's Southampton, but you're probably not staying up. You could probably interchange 19th and 20th depending on how the league goes, but Southampton's my 20th place. In 19th, I'm gonna have Ipswich Town. So every season, right, you have the three teams that are coming up from the Championship, and there's always one that people just want to kind of see succeed or at least stay in the Premier League past that first season. And I get the feeling this time around that people kind of want to see Ipswich stay up. They do have Liam Delap, who they got from City, who's this promising young striker. They have Omari Hutchinson, they have Broadhead, and these are going to be players that are going to be key to any success that Ipswich does have this season. But even then, those names don't really fill you with confidence when you're talking about the Premier League, a course of 38 games. Kieran McKenna, the manager of Ipswich, is also being praised as a new up-and-coming talented manager, but honestly, he could be in a little bit of trouble. Think about company with Burnley. They were playing this expansive football in the Championship. They come to the Premier League, they get exposed. So it might not be pretty for Ipswich in this run around in the Premier League. They could absolutely get dogged out, or they could manage to barely survive, but I do have them going back down to 19. Ultimately, if we're looking at the squad as a whole, it's just not good enough. And in the final relegation spot at 18th place, I'm gonna go with Nottingham Forest. So Nottingham still have a very cluttered squad, considering that not long ago, they bought pretty much every single fringe player under the sun in order to make a collectively good Premier League team, and they managed to stay alive in the Premier League, but at what cost? They have been trying to get rid of a lot of the deadwood that was brought in, such as Niakate, and they've made signings like Jota Silva, who on paper look promising, especially under Nuno Santos, but it's yet to see how well a player like that is really gonna do in the Prem. If we collectively take a look at the squad that Nottingham Forest have, aren't many names that really scream out to you. They do have Callum Hudson-Odoi, who could be good for them, and if we see Morgan Gibbs-White improve on the form that he has shown, or Elanga step up a little bit in the production end of things, maybe they could end up staying over the team that I have ahead of them. But ultimately, I feel like their luck is just gonna run out. There's gonna be problems with the squad, and they're just gonna end up going down at the end of the season. So there you have it, your three relegated teams: Nottingham Forest, Ipswich Town, Southampton. So just about surviving relegation at 17th place, I have Leicester City. So Leicester, the fairy tale team of the 2010s, team that won the Premier League against all odds, was relegated and is back in the Premier League. They have a good amount of players who were with them in the Prem before they got relegated, which could be a benefit to them since most teams that are coming up through the Championship typically have a squad that's made up of a lot of Championship quality players, but Leicester have the benefit of having these experienced players that probably help them a lot in the long run. Players like Pereira, Connor Cody, Ndidi, Harry Winks aren't names that stand out to you as world beaters, but they are players who are probably going to play a big part in the season, and they have that experience of being in the Premier League. And if Jamie Vardy can fire for them on all cylinders, then it's going to be very good for them. That is a big question mark, right? Is Vardy still going to be able to perform at the highest level? We're going to have to wait and see for that. They did also lose Dewsbury Hall, which will hurt them a ton if they cannot replace him before the window ends. He was a very big presence for them in the goal scoring and the assist department last last season. So if they can't replace him, they might be in trouble, which is why I kind of have them at 17th. He was a pretty big figure for them. They did also finalize a loan for one of their good wingers, Fatawu, who was great in the championship, but we're gonna have to wait and see how he does in the Premier League. Overall, I think they have a good enough squad to survive, but I don't think it's gonna be pretty by any stretch of the imagination, which is why I have them at 17th. If things go wrong, they could slip up, fall into the relegation zone, but they should survive. At 16th, I have Brentford. They spent a majority of the last season without Ivan Toney in the squad, so it'd be nice for them to have him back. And that's, of course, if he ends up staying. At the moment, there hasn't been too many clubs that have been coming in for him, probably partially due to his scandal, right, that saw him miss a ton of games, but also it seems like partially his attitude maybe isn't all the way there that most clubs are looking for. I know Arsenal was interested in him roughly, I know United was kind of interested in him, but it's been pretty radio silent. So if he does end up staying, which it's looking very likely, he's probably going to be bailing them out of a lot of situations. They haven't really made any important signings either. That's a big thing with these teams that are at the lower end of the table. It's usually one or two signings that they make that really end up bailing them out, pushes them forward a little bit, but with Brentford, they haven't really signed anybody. They did sign Thiago Rodriguez for 33 million, who is going to be a striking option, but the guy's injured. He's not even going to be available until December. Looking at it objectively, right, the squad is almost identical to what it was last year. And if they do end up losing Toney, they're going to be in huge trouble. I don't think he's going to go anywhere, but if he does leave, it's looking very tough for Brentford. 15th place, I have Wolves. With Wolves, we're looking at a team that struggles greatly with scoring goals and that relies mostly on defending principles to see them out. Have brought in Larson on loan from Celta Vigo, who proved to be good. He is young, he's physical, he's keen to make an impression, and this could be a good season for him. At the moment, Scandinavian strikers are the craze, Haaland, Højlund, and now we have Larson. Wolves did lose Max Kilman, which could be a big loss for them at the back since it seemed like he was their main defensive anchor, as they usually play a 5-back with him at the heart of the defense. They haven't brought anyone in to replace him yet either, so that defensive stability that they had, they could be losing this year, which could be a big drawback for them, hence why I kind of have them at 15th. They'll probably nick some good results here and there, and maybe Larson will have a game randomly where he gets a brace or maybe even a hat trick if he's feeling crazy, but honestly, I don't think the squad's really going to impress too much. 14th place, I have Bournemouth. Michael B. Jordan's cherries are on course for an okay season. If Solanke stays, he will be huge for them if he can replicate last season's scoring output. Similar to some of the teams around them, they haven't really made too many changes to their team, which could be an issue. With Bournemouth, you have this team who revitalized themselves and starting to play pretty decent football. Kind of took a lot of teams by surprise, including United, who they pounded out, but teams are probably going to start to pick up on how they have been playing, and this could be an issue for them. They did sign Unal, who could be a good attacking option throughout the season to help get those goal scoring numbers up, and Milos Kerkez, the left back, is also probably going to prove to be a great player for them, especially in the modern landscape of football. Wide backs are all the craze. With Everton not facing a point deduction this season, at least not at the moment, it could be more of a challenge for Bournemouth to climb higher up the table, but we're gonna have to wait and see. But for now, we'll set them at 14th. So at 13th place, I have Brighton. This might seem like an odd choice, but hear me out. They did really well in the 22-23 season and then fell off drastically last year, which saw them fall from 6th all the way down to 11th. They were riddled with injuries, especially at the front half of the season. They had very crucial players like Mitoma out, which really impacted the flow of the squad. And so far this season, they haven't really made any notable acquisitions. Mitoma this season really needs to step it up. He was getting a lot of hype last year and the year before that, and so far he hasn't really delivered to push Brighton to get to that next level. I'm also not convinced by João Pedro and Welbeck as the forwards in 2024, and Ferguson also needs to step it up. And Ciso, where are you? You had a lot of hype on you, and now you're kind of just gone. They also lost Pascal Gross, who in my opinion was a major figure for them, and it's going to be hard to replace him. They do have the likes of De Hood in there, but De Hood for Brighton is nowhere near the impact player that Pascal Gross was for them. Bezerbi also left at the end of the season, and now you have Hertzler, who did a great job with St. Pauli, now has to translate that success to the Premier League. So in my opinion, there's a lot of question marks with this Brighton team. They're not really signing players to improve. Again, I'm not convinced by João Pedro and Welbeck as forward options in this campaign. I don't think they're really going to do too well, but we'll have to wait and see. But for now, we'll set them at 13th. In 12th place, I have Everton. Again, hear me out on this one. First off, they're not going to be having any point deductions this season. Again, I don't think they will. And if it wasn't for the point deductions, they would have finished in 12th place last year. They did lose Onana, which on paper feels worse worse than what it actually is, because towards the end of last season, they weren't actually starting Onana all of the time. So you could say that we're kind of adjusting to life without him already. Jared Braithwaite is also likely to stay, since United seemingly have prioritized De Ligt, which is going to be huge for Everton because that's a big piece of their defensive stability. Goal scoring is probably still going to be an issue for Everton unless they can sign another good striker. And they have brought in Lindstrom from Napoli and Ndaya from Marseille in order to provide some new options for the front line, as they are looking to address the situation. But if Calvert-Lewin can't get going, it's going to be another struggle of a year for Everton. Overall this season, we should expect a higher finish from Everton, mostly in large part due to the fact they don't have the hindrance of a point deduction. In 11th place, I have Fulham. So Fulham had a weird campaign last year where they had a couple of breakout stars, but they couldn't really get the results in order. And they did also have a couple of players who really broke out. Andres Pereira, Anthony Robinson, Iwobi, Arabayo, and Palhinha all were very impressive last year, and they were big helps for them, but not all of these players are still at the club. And where they really took the biggest hits was in the defensive sector. Palhinha, who is probably one of the best pure CDMs in the Premier League, I'm talking about just ball retention, tackle winning, that type of center defensive mid, is probably one of the best ones in the Premier League, and playing for Fulham, has finally left Fulham. Who would have seen that coming, right? Arabayo also left as well. He's not as world class as Palhinha is, but he was still very good for Fulham. So it's gonna be tough for Fulham to replace him because he was a pretty big figure there. They haven't quite replaced either of those two players yet. Transfer window isn't over. They still have a chance to bring in some good replacements. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that. But one player who I do see shining for them this season and keeping them alive and keeping them pushing forward is Smith Rowe, who they just acquired from Arsenal. So Smith Rowe alongside Pereira, and then also either Adama Traore or Willian or Iwobi with Muniz or Raul Jimenez up top could prove to be a pretty decent strike force, I'm not gonna lie. I see Smith Rowe coming out and having an insane redemption season. He hasn't been the main option at Arsenal, despite him having some good seasons before Odegaard got there. I think he's gonna be a breakout star for them. I might be completely wrong. He might not end up playing minutes for them at all. I can see Smith Rowe going crazy this year, and I think that'll be enough to get them 11th. In 10th place, middle of the pack, I have West Ham. So West Ham are making some very big acquisitions this transfer window. They signed Folkrug, who's coming off a very good campaign with Dortmund that saw them in the Champions League final. He did also have a pretty good Euro with Germany. He was coming off the bench most of the time, but he was scoring goals. They also signed Guido Rodriguez from Real Betis for more midfield coverage, especially since Edson Alvarez is going to be out injured for a while. And even when Edson comes back, he's going to be continuing to improve. They signed Somerville from Leeds, who will be a great attacking option in the rotation. And then they also nabbed Max Kilman from Wolves, who will be a fantastic defensive option. The only big question marks for West Ham are how well are your new signings going to gel together. If they don't get going soon enough, this could be a problem from West Ham, but if they get things figured out and they're firing on all cylinders pretty early on, I could see them having a very good mid-table finish. Additionally, how will injuries in the attack affect the squad? If something happens to Folkrug, then you're relying on Michael Antonio, who has a terrible track record in the Premier League, at least as of late. So you really have to hope for West Ham that injuries don't derail their season. And then also, how good are your wide backs? Honestly, this looks like a very poor area of the pitch for them. Hopefully they can address this. Otherwise, like I said, question marks around those areas of the squad. But ultimately, 10th place seems pretty comfortable for them. 9th place, I have Crystal Palace. So Palace have the potential to outperform themselves from last year, and I wouldn't be surprised if they finished even a little bit higher. They did lose Olise, who was a huge loss, but the way that Palace play for me isn't necessarily a system that revolves around one player. They did bring in Ismail Assar, who could prove to be a competent replacement on the right hand side, and they also signed Kamara from Lazio, who will also seemingly be a good addition to their midfield setup. Players like Munoz, Eze, Mateta, who all shined under Glasner towards the end of last season, I can see them carrying this form into this current campaign. Munoz had a very good Copa America with Colombia. Eze got a couple of good minutes, and Mateta is seemingly doing pretty good at the Olympics at the moment. So these three could be very big figures for Crystal Palace and really push them to that 9th place finish. And if the teams above them underperform, they can maybe even finish a little bit higher. 8th place, we have Chelsea. So Chelsea, okay, let me ask you this, Chelsea fans, honest question. What is the plan with your new coach? It's preseason, and I hate to talk about preseason because 99% of the time these games don't matter. Yes, the players are running and they're trying hard and they're sprinting, but these games don't matter. They end up having zero consequences on the rest of the season. But even then, your preseason has been terrible. I don't know what's going on. What really is the plan with your new manager? You got rid of Pochettino for this guy, and so far he's not really showing anything of promise. You're going into this new season with Jackson still as your main striker, which is terrible. You've spent billions of pounds on the squad and you still have Jackson up top. You sold Conor Gallagher, who's probably one of your best midfielders last season, just because your club wanted to make profit profit on him, which that's not really on Chelsea fans. That's on Chelsea. What is the plan here? You have Enzo Fernandez who started a freaking race war at Chelsea. There's a disaster at Chelsea. I can smell a disaster of a season coming along. And so far, I think the only big signing that they have, or any really relevant signing that they have, is Dewsbury Hall, which again, I mean, good player. He was very good for Leicester, but really that's gonna be the guy who gets you guys going. I mean, you finished 7th place. Of course, you have Cole Palmer, who he individually could have a good season. He had an individually good season last year, and you still finished pretty low in the league. So question marks around Chelsea. I have them in 8th place. I don't see this being a pretty season for them. 7th place, we have Newcastle. So Newcastle don't really have any major things that have happened to the squad so far. The best thing going for them into this season is that they're pretty much starting fresh. Last year, injuries were a huge problem for them, since Eddie Howe was missing a lot of his really key players pretty early on in the season and even throughout. I expect Isak to have an even better season from the last, as he seemingly just keeps getting better and better as time goes on. The only issue I really have with this Newcastle squad is because they haven't brought anyone in, I don't see them being a whole lot better. We know kind of the ceiling of this team so far. We've seen Eddie Howe do really well with the players that he has. We've also seen him do kind of bad with the players that he has. I mean, it's not always going to be his fault. Sometimes the players don't apply themselves, but again, if you're not improving on the players that aren't doing well, how much further can you really push this team after so many years? And again, let's say injuries happen again, what's the plan, right? If they don't make signings, this could be a pretty similar season to the last one. And also, the teams above them have arguably improved at this point, so there's really no guarantee that Newcastle is going to finish any higher than 7th. They could finish potentially lower if Chelsea end up doing better and if injuries happen again, but I think 7th place is pretty comfortable for Newcastle. In 6th place, I have Hotspur. So what do we expect from Ange? Ange is a manager who came into the league, and the first about 3 months, everybody was deriding this guy, saying that he was a brand new, fantastic generational manager because he was playing his way, and then he decided to stick to his guns against Chelsea, even after a red card, and they got absolutely dogged out. From there, it was a pretty inconsistent season, a season of highs and lows. So what are we going to expect from Ange this season? Who really knows? They've also been pretty quiet this transfer window, as they haven't really sold anyone notable or signed anyone notable. I haven't really even seen them been linked with anybody. Kind of like I touched on with Newcastle. How much more are you really going to get out of these players that you didn't get last year? I'm not really too convinced by this overall squad that Spurs have, especially up top. After Son, who world-class player, you're then relying on Richarlison, Timo Werner, and get you gold. If Kulusevski and Maddison don't have big seasons alongside Son, then it's not really going to be pretty. Similar to some of the other teams that I've talked about, I can see them finishing a little bit lower if Ange gets found out pretty early in the season, or if injuries kind of do strike them down. So I think they kind of need to add to their depth, and I think with Ange, it's important for him to realize that yes, sticking to your guns is important, but it might not always work, but we'll see. For now, I have them at 6th place. So in 5th place, just about missing out on top 4, have Aston Villa. So Villa did absolutely phenomenal last season. I promise you, nobody saw this coming. All credit to Unai Emery, who came to this club after getting abused by Arsenal fans and did an absolute madness. The guy had them playing such phenomenal football, going head to head with the best teams in the league, and in result, he got a top 4 finish. So hats off to Emery. He has been amazing at Aston Villa. They have also acquired some very good players to add to the team, such as Ian Maatsen at left back and Amadou Onana as a center defensive midfield option, since Douglas Luiz has left the club. So these are 2 really good players to add. Ian Maatsen is either going to be your starting left back or very good rotation competition with Lucas Digne. That's a fantastic option. And then you have Amadou Onana, who, like I said, is pretty much going to be a direct replacement for Douglas Luiz. Great player, young, tons of potential, physical presence, great ball winner, good passing. That's an amazing signing no matter what you say. And they also acquired a couple of good players for depth, like Archer, Barkley, Dobbin. These are all guys who are just good for the squad. You're going to be playing a ton of games, FA Cup, random Champions League games, EFL Cup, Premier League. These are the type of players you want to have to just throw in there when the chips are down. Like I mentioned, they did lose Douglas Luiz, they did lose Diaby to Saudi Arabia, but in all honesty, these are players that either have already been replaced or are pretty replaceable. So I do just really see with Aston Villa their only hiccup being Champions League. It can be pretty taxing to your schedule, especially if they end up in a pretty hard group. I could see this really being a big deterrent for them. That's why I just about have them missing out. I think it's going to be tough for them to transition from pretty much only prioritizing the Premier League to kind of battling on 4 fronts. Still, I do predict a good season for them, but I see them dropping off a little bit. So that brings us to top 4. Who do I think is going to be top 4? In 4th place, and some of you might give me some stick for this, in 4th place, I have Liverpool. So Liverpool are in their first first season after the Jurgen Klopp era. So there is tons of question marks around what is going to be happening with this team, but the biggest thing for me that is definitely not a question mark that I think is going to carry them into top 4 is the players that they have. They still have Mo Salah, they still have Virgil van Dijk, they still have Alisson, they still have McAllister. These are all very key players that I think for them are going to drag them to top 4. They even still have Darwin Nunez and Luis Diaz, who judge them for their output, judge them for their goal scoring ability. They still are players that are going to show up for them. They're going to fight for the badge. They still have Diogo Jota, who could probably prove to still be an X factor for the team. We're yet to see how well Arne Slot is going to do in the Premier League over a 38 game season. Like I kind of touched on with Chelsea, I don't really like to talk about preseason, but to his credit, his preseason for Liverpool has been doing very well, but that's not really much to go on. Ten Hag had a good preseason in his first season, and there was a ton of ups and downs, right? They haven't really brought in too many players that are really of note that you could say, wow, these are phenomenal and this is really going to change how the team's going to play, and these are players that Arne Slot is going to bring the best out of, but they still have a good enough squad to probably compete for that top 4. So I think they're going to get it instead of some of the other teams that I talked about for those couple of reasons, which leaves us 3 teams, and I think most people can probably predict who I'm going to have in 3rd place, but it is United. United, of course, last season finished 8th. No matter where we would have finished, we probably would have gotten clowned. If we finished 3rd, if we finished 8th, if we finished 10th, if we finished 14th, the headlines would have been there regardless. So this season, similar to Newcastle, we're pretty much starting fresh. The last season, we were riddled with injuries. We played like 15 different back lines. We had about 8 different players who played in the left back position throughout the season. Lisandro Martinez was hurt, Varane was hurt, Maguire was hurt, Højlund was hurt, Rashford was hurt, Bruno even picked up an injury at one point. It was disastrous. Johnny Evans had to end up playing so many games because we never really had a back line. It was such an anomaly of a season when it came to injuries that it was a disaster. This time around, we're starting fresh. We have everyone fit except 2 players. Lene Yoro, who's a brand new signing, and then Rasmus Højlund, who is out again. That brings me to my next point. We're making good signings. So far, we've brought in a handful of players. Joshua Zirkzee, who is a player who likes to kind of drop deep, pick up the ball, create with the space that is in front of him. So that could be good for the likes of Marcus Rashford and Amad Diallo. We brought in Lene Yoro, who is a very good promising center back. He's been dubbed the next Varane. He is out for 3 months due to an injury he picked up in preseason. So there's that injury curse kind of striking us again. We're also linked with the likes of De Ligt, Fofana, Mazraoui, a ton of players as we usually are. But with Ten Hag keeping his job, getting in more players that are being presented to him instead of him choosing them out, I think we're on course for a pretty good season. I see us finishing 3rd. Of course, I'm gonna get stick in the comments. I would get stick in the comments if I put us 3rd, 4th, 6th. No matter where I put us, someone would have said something. But I have us finishing 3rd. So that leaves us with the top 2 options. Who am I as a United fan gonna pick to finish first between Manchester City and Arsenal? And I'm just gonna say who I have first place, which would automatically tell you who I have second. But in first place, I'm gonna go with Man City. You might be thinking to yourself, there is no way Man City is gonna win 5 Premier League titles in a row, and there's no way Arsenal's gonna not win the league for what's now a 3rd season in a row. And every single year that Man City win the Premier League, before the season starts, you have people saying, there's no way Man City's gonna win it again. They're getting fatigued. They don't have the mentality anymore. And every single season, Pep Guardiola and Manchester City are champions at the end of the season. Why? Because they are just on a different level. No matter what we do, no matter what we try, Liverpool have been there, Arsenal have been there. No one's gonna get the job done until this freaking bald guy leaves. And one of the main reasons why I don't think Arsenal is really gonna kind of transform and all of a sudden kick into a different gear is there's still question marks in the attack front. They have so far signed Caliaflori at center back, who is going to be playing more of a left back, who's going to kind of invert in. That's a great option, but Arsenal was already very good defensively. That wasn't really a concern for them. They had Zinchenko there, who did a pretty good job. You could consider Caliaflori a little bit of an upgrade there, but ultimately, if we're not making changes up top, we're still looking at Kai Havertz probably playing striker, Gabriel Jesus playing striker, who, for me, if that's all you're relying on, and then with Martinelli on the left, I don't see that being a championship caliber team. They're incredible, but for them to beat City, it's gonna take a whole lot more than that. And of course, City, I mean, they still have Haaland, they still have De Bruyne, they still have all these incredible players. They did lose Julian Alvarez, but they still have Doku, they still have Bernardo Silva. They're just gonna win again. Inevitably, they're gonna win again. We're all gonna say they lost it, they might start slow, and then it's gonna happen again where they just come back and win the freaking league. And I hate it because it'll be the 5th time in a row, but guess what? Nobody cares when City wins the league. They won the freaking treble, and nobody gave a damn. They won the Premier League 4 times in a row, nobody gave a damn. No one cares about City. And 10 years from now, 15 years from now, we're gonna look back at these accomplishments and say, wow, nobody cared. They might not even have these accomplishments if they get charged for all their charges, but we're gonna have to wait and see. But boys, there is my Premier League prediction. I'm gonna put it right here for you guys. Watch it one more time, pause it if you want to get a good look at it. But that is my Premier League predictions. We will come back to this video in 9 months time, and you will see, and I will see, and the whole world will see how I was 1000% accurate with all my predictions.